everybody, it's Jennifer J. I hope that this finds you well, and I hope that it finds you on time, because, let me set my timer, sorry. You know I've been having trouble uploading these videos, and so the last one, just never even did upload for Monday. And so I'm trying to do this one. What I want to do, if I can ever find the time, is to get recorded ahead enough that they're loaded in time, because it's taking 2 and 3 days to get them loaded, and I'm not sure why or what's happened. It's never taken that long in the past, but it is what it is. And you know, Satan doesn't want these out there, and he's being obnoxious, but God is bigger, and so they will post when they post, and they will be right on time when they do. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep doing what God told me to do. I've been frustrated. I know you can probably tell from my videos, and my lighting isn't real good. I apologize. I think in the last one I looked like I was sunburnt. I should do these during the day when it's lighter outside. That would probably help. But I also don't have one of those fancy little light rings. I was using one when I was at my sister's, but it belonged to them. So I don't have one, and I apologize. I don't look the best on these, but I told you from the beginning I'm not a professional YouTuber. But God told me to do this, and going way back to one of the first sermons I told you guys about in my story, when Pastor Lucas had said, don't move until God tells you to move. And so that's what I was thinking about today was, you know, I've been frustrated and just wanted to give up on this for a while, because I'm working 2 jobs and I'm writing a book and I'm working on all the onboarding paperwork stuff and tasks with Arise, and I'm just so stinking busy. But then I got thinking about that and thought, you know, no, I can't do that, because God didn't tell me to stop doing this. He did tell me to do it, but he hasn't told me to stop doing it. So I need to make time for it and figure it out. So that's what I'm doing tonight. I hope it finds you on time, and if not, when it does find you, I hope you get something out of it. So this was from June 28th, and it's a TD Jakes. It's a faith thing, and it's out of Hebrews 11 verses 1 through 6. So this is really good, and it's really long, so I don't know if I'll get through it all, but I'm going to try. And I'm going to jump around just a little bit, so I apologize already ahead of time. But he said the redundancy of the text does not reduce the relevance of the text. So he's talking about the Bible. I don't know if you can see my Bible over here. I don't know how big my frame is in my camera, but the relevancy of the text, or the redundancy of the text, doesn't reduce the relevance of the text. He said 2 plus 2 is still 4. It's still true. And this word is true. It's the living word. It's alive. And it's potent, which we all know that's true. He said it is so powerful, 1 cell is enough to change you. One word out of this is enough to change you. Because faith is. And he said in verse 3 out of Hebrews 11, he said in verse 3, things that are real are not of things seen. As a person thinks, so is he. And he used some examples. He said Enoch pleased God, not people, and by faith he pleased him. It wasn't his perfect life, and it wasn't his praise life, it wasn't his prayer life, it was faith. By faith he was righteous, and he pleased God. You can only come to God if God allows it, but you didn't see him until he made himself seen. And you have to believe. So God rewards those who seek him. So God's not going to make you believe. He's going to show himself to you. Sorry, I got a hair in my eye. He's going to show himself to you, but he's not going to make you believe it. That's up to you. But he was talking about the war of ideas in Israel in the Old Testament. So the Pharisees and the Sadducees fought Jesus together. And I don't know how many of you that are watching are from Pearl Street Baptist Church, before the Reformed Pearl Street Baptist Church in Paola, Kansas. Back, 35 years ago. We had a pastor, Tom Wheeler, and he told us the difference between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And he said the Sadducees, they were both religious sects, I can't say that word, sects. And the Pharisees believed that you had to do all these rituals. The Sadducees didn't believe in the resurrection, which was sad, you see. And that's how I always remembered the difference between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Anyway, but they agreed on one thing, and that was the war of ideas. Gnostics, Gnostics, means to know, and agnostic means to not know. So Gnosticism said that they knew God, and they thought Jesus was a step up the ladder toward God. And then they could only know God through knowledge. That's what the Pharisees and Sadducees thought. They could only know God through knowledge. So the Pharisees thought you got to God through holiness, through rituals, routine, long prayers. I don't know, but a lot of you that are watching have heard the stories about the long prayers with the Pharisees. But the Sadducees thought that it was 3 days until the soul left the body. And that is why, intentionally, Jesus waited 4 days before he went to raise Lazarus from the dead. And that was because he wanted to prove to them it wasn't just that he was still hanging around his body and jumped back in or whatever they thought. He wanted to make sure they knew he was really, really gone. And so that's why he waited 4 days. And he said, God waits until you can't. And that's when he steps in and shows himself strong. And reading back over this today, you guys, because I've had a really rough week, and that really spoke to me again today, that when I can't, that's when God can. I mean, God always can, but that's when he shows himself strong, when we're at our wit's end and we have no way to do it ourselves. We can't give anybody else credit, right? It's completely and utterly God. So faith isn't a New Testament idea. Abraham walked by faith, and faith never gets out of style. It existed before the world, and it just is, like God is. And it's the common denominator. It's the gateway to everything that's promised to us. Faith isn't willpower. Faith isn't saying I can do this. Faith has hope, and that makes it different than willpower. But T.D. Jakes had said, what God is getting ready to do, you have no qualification for. It's a faith thing. And sometimes God tells you the most illogical stuff. And when he said that, I just laughed, because I was like, oh yeah, he told me some illogical stuff, all right. And he said it can be scary, and it is. And he said it doesn't have to make sense, and it doesn't. And he said David was a shepherd. He was a shepherd boy who became king. That didn't make sense. He was also the youngest of 8 boys, and yet he was the one, the king would usually be the oldest child, and it would usually be the oldest son of the previous king. So it didn't make sense, but God said he'll do it for you, so don't be afraid or reluctant. Oh, excuse me. I thought I was going to sneeze. I think it went away. Oh, goodness. So God said he'll do it for you. Don't be afraid or reluctant. Where there is no hope, faith has nothing to do. When you have a low self-esteem for your life, faith's hands are tied. The enemy wants to kill your hope. Think about that. The enemy wants to kill your hope. Are you letting him? Because I can tell you what, over the last few days, when I've been feeling kind of low, I think I've been letting him steal my hope. Just a little bit. I had a lot of friends praying and lifting me up and getting me through. But I've just had a lot of stuff going on. I've had some friends with some issues and some family with some issues, and it was just getting me really down. So But don't let him steal your hope. The audacity to do it without you, the audacity to believe you can do what God has called you to do. I have to think about that for a minute, because it does take audacity to believe you can do what God called you to do. I don't know. I'm terrified, you guys. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to go out of the country. I don't know if I'm going to raise the funds to be able to survive. I don't know what the next step is. There's so many unknowns, and every day I'm just taking one more step of faith, and every day God has taken care of me. Every day my bills have been paid. I've got food in my house. I've got a car. I've got a job. All the things, right? And when I think about what he's called me to do, it seems so insurmountable. But when I think about who he is, right? David and Goliath, he can do it, and he will do it. And so I have the audacity to believe I can do it. Abraham wasn't righteous, but his faith was counted as righteousness. And he said, once the book says you are righteous, don't act like you're not. So once you've been saved and Jesus' righteousness is covering you and you are seen as righteous, don't act like you're not righteous. That's when we need to stop sinning and start acting holy as he is holy. And we're not going to be perfect, obviously. Today, Pastor gave a good word picture when he said, don't be conformed to this world. Be in the world, but don't be of the world. He said, you can go on a boat. The boat can go on the water, but you don't want the water in the boat. And he said, we're all going to have water in our boat. But every year, you should have less and less water, because you should be growing in your Christian walk. So that just was a good word picture for me to think about. Being in this world but not of this world is getting the water out of the boat. The world can't be in my boat. It's got to go. And it's hard to think about all the things. But when I just do it just one day at a time, instead of looking at the whole big picture and all this big plan that they're telling me about at Arise and the things that we'll do, it's big and scary over here. But when I just do one day at a time and just put one foot in front of the other, it's manageable. And I know that the end goal is to see souls saved, which is awesome. And I do want to be part of that. So God is waiting on you to believe what he has said about you. Through faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God. The Greek word eons equals ages. The ages were hemmed in. The future is locked. There's a hedge. I can't read my own writing. There's a hedge around tomorrow. I love that. There's a hedge around tomorrow. The ages were hemmed in. The future is locked. And there's a hedge around tomorrow. God has a way. Your tomorrow is already fixed. Things that do appear were not made of things that do appear. God made this out of nothing. So things that do appear were made out of things that don't appear. He can do it. God has designed a future for you. If you'd get out of God's way, that would be faith. And faith comes by hearing. Protect what you hear. Be careful what you listen to. How you think matters. What you think matters. What you're putting your thoughts on. What you're allowing yourself to think about. Don't self-sabotage what God has for you. You got to build something that looks like a fool and wait on the rain. And my timer's going off, so I'm going to stop there. But you guys, I want you to think about that part. That's about half, so that was probably a good place to stop. But protect what you hear, protect what you think about. Remember that God's got your tomorrow, and if there's anything that you're worried about or stressing about or anxious about, I'm even trying to think, if there's something that you've prayed about, you just need to trust God for it. Trust for His timing, trust for His answer, because even if it's something you want really super bad, He knows what's best for you, and if you believe that, you have to trust Him with His answer. And it might not be the answer you want, but it's going to be the best answer. So I hope that you came away with something from that. I hope that this loads for you tonight, and I will try to get another one done as quickly as possible so it can load on time. And if you would, please subscribe if you haven't. Share it with a friend today, and let's get out there and share the gospel. Bye, guys.